With money losing its value every day due to inflation, I decided that I want to start investing a portion of my income every year. Let's say 20% of it. To do that though, I needed a way to easily sum up my total income and expenses every month and dynamically generate reports that would indicate how much money I'm saving every month and how far off I am from reaching my yearly investment target. This would allow me to make smarter financial decisions and stop wasting money on things I don't really need. I needed a budget tracker, and I decided to build one in Notion since it's the app I use for pretty much everything that has to do with note-taking and data tracking. Here's how I did it. Here you can see my budget tracker. It consists of multiple databases that help me track my income and expenses, and then using that data create reports that calculate my total savings and evaluate whether I have reached my yearly investment target or not. I populated the databases with some sample data, and I will now walk you through each step of how I built this. If at any point you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And with that said, let's jump straight to the income database. So this is my income database, and it consists of the following fields. I have a title field called name. So this is where I'm giving the income source a descriptive name, such as consulting for consulting services, rental properties, affiliate marketing, job for my job income, and so on. Then I have a field called type, and this is of type select. So here I have 3 different options that I can choose from in order to basically categorize the income source. So for example, I see rental properties as a passive income. Similarly, affiliate marketing is also like a passive income source. So yeah, this is more like a categorization of the income. Then I have a field called amount, and this is where I enter the amount I received from that income source, and this is of type number. And then I have a field called date, which is of type date, and this is where I select the date on which I received that income. Now, after creating this first section here, these first 4 fields, I realized that I do not always receive my income in my base currency, and my base currency is US dollars, but sometimes I receive my income in euros, sometimes in British pounds, and so on. So, and the same goes for my expenses as well. I do not always make my expenses in US dollars, especially when I'm traveling. So I wanted to find a way to convert the amount to US dollars. And even though I could technically do that before entering the amount on the database record, I could do the conversion before entering it here. I wanted this to be as simple and easy to use as possible. Therefore, I kept the amount as the amount in the inbound currency, let's say, and then I created a system which will allow me to convert the amount to US dollars. The way I did this is by creating a database called currency converter. And here I have some records. So this database only has 2 fields: a name field where I enter the currency code, and then a rate field where I enter the currency exchange rate between this currency and US dollars. Now, initially what I started doing here is I was manually copy pasting the exchange rate from xc.com. So I was just doing the conversion from the inbound currency to US dollars, and then copying and pasting the exchange rate in the field. But then I realized that exchange rates change frequently, right? So if I paste this here, within a few minutes, maybe even a few seconds, it's going to be out of date. And I like to have numbers that are up to date. So I wanted to create an automation that automatically updates this rate every day. The way I did that is by creating an automation using a tool called Make. So I went to make.com, I created a free account, and then I created a new scenario. So this is my scenario here. This is my workflow essentially. And the way it works, I initially have this module called Notion Search Objects. So what this module does is it basically retrieves all the records from this database. I'm passing it the database ID here of this database, and it's able to retrieve those records. Now, to set up this module, you first have to create a connection with Notion. And the way you do that is by clicking Add here, selecting Notion Internal, entering a connection name. So this can be anything you like. And then here you need to paste an integration token. Now, in order to obtain an integration token, you have to go to notion.so/my-integrations. And it's gonna bring you to you need to be logged into your Notion account on the browser, and it's gonna bring you to this page here where you can create a new integration. Now, you go ahead and enter a name for your integration. This can be anything you want. You select the Notion workspace that you want to interact with, and then click Submit, right? Leave these settings as they are here and then click Submit. What that's going to do is generate a secret token for you, and you're going to see it here. You're going to be able to copy it to copy it from here. Once you have that token, just paste it here, click Save, and you should be able to create a connection. Now, in order for Make to read data from a particular database, what you first have to do is actually invite your integration to that database. And the way you do that is by finding, you first have to open the database in a full page. And this is easy for me to do here because I've already set up this database as a full page. But if, let's say, this was the database I wanted to connect to, this is sort of like an embedded database within this budget tracker page. So what you would have to do in that case, if you have this type of database, is open it as a full page first. You then need to click on the Share button, click on this box, and here you should see your Make integration. Just click on it and then invite it so it can actually read data from this database. Next, what you need to do is go back to your Notion module, and here you need to enter the database ID. The database ID is this here. So this combination of letters and numbers between the notion.so / and then that question mark, right? So that's the database ID that you need to copy and paste in this field here. So this is what I did for the currency converter database. I just copied this ID and pasted it here. Now, since my goal is to retrieve all the records in this database and get a currency conversion rate for each one of them, I did not add any filters. So you only add a filter to your query here if you want to filter the search results. But I did not want to filter anything, so I didn't add any filters. And then for the limit, I set this to 20. So basically this is how many, what's the maximum number of records you want to retrieve. And I set this to 20 just in case I want to add more currency records in the future. So that's the first field. And if I go ahead and run this module only, if I check the output here, so this is the output, as you can see, there's 3 bundles, or in other words, 3 collections, or in other words, 3 records of data. So these are the 3 records we get. Now, the way Make works is that it processes 1 bundle at a time. And what I mean by that is when it gets a bundle, it's going to take that data and then run all the other modules in the scenario, right? So it's going to take the first one, I'm going to explain what this does, but it's going to run this one, and then it's going to go back to this one, get the second bundle, the second record, and again, execute these modules, then get the third one, execute these modules. That's how it works. It processes 1 bundle at a time. Now, for each one of these records, for each one of these bundles, the goal is to get the currency exchange rate for that currency, right? So the way I do that, I do this is by I'm using this module, which is actually a built-in module, and it basically converts your currencies. So here I'm just entering amount as 1, and then for the input currency, I'm doing this process called mapping here, where if you click on a field, you can see the data elements retrieved from previous modules in the scenario, right? And in order to see this, you might have to first like run this module alone in order to retrieve some data and get the data elements. But once you see the data elements in this list, what you have to find is, it's a little bit confusing here, but let me just close these collections so you can see it better. You will find this collection here called properties value. And here you will see the different fields of your database. So we have rate, and then we have name. So name is what I want, right? I want the input currency code, which can be found under the name field of my database. So if I open this collection under the name field, what I want is this plain text version of it, right? So there's like different ways to access the data you want, but plain text is the easiest one. So I'm just gonna click on that, and that populates the mapping to that field. So basically every time I'm processing a bundle, every time I'm processing a record, this field here, the value of that field will be replaced by the value of my record under the value of the name field of my record, right? So that's the input currency, and then the output currency is US dollars. I hope that makes sense. So then this will get the exchange rate, and then what I want to do next is take that exchange rate and update this rate field with it. So I'm doing that using a module called Notion Updated Database Item. Here what I'm doing, once again, I'm pasting the database ID, which I copied from the URL. And then I am mapping the page ID of the page I want to update, or in other words, the database record that I want to update. Since every database record on Notion is technically a page, that's why it's called a page ID. So the page ID is the ID of the record that the scenario is currently processing, and this will dynamically, the value of that field will dynamically get updated as I'm processing the different bundles of data from this module. And for each one of those pages, what I want to do is update a field called rate, right? So that's the name of my field, which is of type number. And the value I want to give that field is the exchange rate I got from that module. So here I'm mapping the exchange rate data element outputted by this module here, right? So that's the value. So yeah, this is how I set up the scenario here. So if I go ahead and delete these ones, I'm just gonna go ahead and run the scenario just so you can see the exchange rates being populated. There you go. So these are the latest exchange rates. And yeah, that's how I set up the currency converter database and the automation. Now, once you have the automation, if you're setting this up, once you have your automation ready, you need to make sure that you save it. And then if you want to make sure that this gets executed once a day, for example, you could execute it every 15 minutes if you want. But in order to basically set up your schedule, you got to click on this clock icon. And then here you have a bunch of different options. So I set up mine to be every day at 1 p.m., right? And then once you have your schedule set, you just need to switch this scenario to on, and that's it. It will get executed once a day automatically and get you the latest exchange rates. So once I had the currency converter database ready, what I did here is I created a relation with it. So I created this relation field called currency. I created a relation with the database, so currency converter database. And I'm actually going to go ahead and disable this, so it doesn't need to be shown on that database. I just want to have the relation here. So yeah, now I'm able to basically select, whenever I create a new record here, I can select the currency of the income or the currency of the expense, as you will see later on. So yeah, I select that there. And then what I wanted to do next is, using the data from that record, calculate the amount in US dollars. Now, in order to retrieve the rate from the relation record, I set up this rollup field. So this is a field called the rate, and it's of type rollup. So the relation I'm using for this rollup is the currency, and the property that I'm getting from that currency relation is the rate number, right? So this is the one that gets automatically updated with the make scenario. So yeah, I'm getting that rate, and then I'm using all this data I have, so the rate and the amount basically, to calculate the amount in USD using this formula field. So it's very simple. I'm just multiplying the amount, so this, with the rate, which I'm first converting to a number. So I'm using this toNumber function here to convert the rate to a number, and then I'm multiplying it with the amount. And then finally, I set the number format to US dollars. So that's pretty much everything I have going on my income database here. I will come back to this report field later on, but now I will move on to the expenses database. So my expenses database is actually very similar to the income one. It's actually pretty much identical. The only difference is here, instead of a field called type, I have a field called category to categorize the expenses. But yeah, overall it's the same. I have a name, a title field called name, where I enter the name of the expense, the category. So I have different options that I can select from. The amount, which once again is not in USD, is in any currency that I choose from this relation field. The date on which I made the expense, then again a relation to that currency converter database, right? Then a rollup field which retrieves the rate number from the related currency record. And finally, once again, a formula field which multiplies the amount by the rate rollup field converted to a number in order to calculate the amount in USD. So yeah, that's my expenses database. So with my income and expenses databases in place, I could now start creating some reports in order to calculate my total income for a month, the total expenses, and of course the total savings. So the way I did that is by creating a database called monthly reports. And in this database, I have a title field called name, where I enter the report name. And this, I'm basically following a naming convention here, where I enter the month and then the year. And then next, what I'm doing here is, let me show you the other hidden fields. So I have a relation field to the income database, and this allows me to select all the income records that have been, like basically all the income that I have received during that month. And then similarly for expenses, I have a relation to the expenses database, so I can select all the expenses I made during that month. Then using these relation records, I'm able to calculate the total income. So I'm using a roll-up field here, and the relation for this one is income. So basically I'm getting all these records here, and I'm calculating the sum based on the amount USD field, right? So this is the formula field that I use to calculate the amount, the final amount in USD. I'm basically summing up those that field for each one of those income records. I'm doing the exact same for the total expenses. So the only difference here is that the relation is the expenses field here, and I'm summing up the amount, the USD amount from each one of those expense records. Finally, to calculate the savings here, I have a formula field, and I'm basically subtracting the total expenses, so whatever the number in this field is, by the total income, so whatever the number in this field is, and that gives me my savings. Now, of course, I didn't want to manually have to create these relations here, like manually have to select every single income record or every single expense record for a particular month in order to, relate it to a particular report. So I found a way to make this process easier, and that is by creating a template on this database. So I went here and created this template, and this template has two linked databases. So I have a linked database, and by the way, you can create a linked database like that. So linked view of a database, and then you just select the database you want to create the linked view for. So I created a link to a database to the income database, and one for the expenses database. Now, in order for me to be able to automatically relate an income record or an expense record to a monthly report, what I did is I created this filter here where I basically make sure that the report relation, so this field here, the report relation field, is equal or contains monthly report. This is a cool hack that I found a few months ago, and basically what this allows you to do is dynamically set the value of this field based on the name of the page, right? So currently the template is called monthly report, but when I start creating pages using this template, by selecting this option here, it will dynamically populate the name of the page, right? So if I'm creating a report called June 2022, that will be the value of this filter, right? So what this means is that it will automatically relate the records to the report, and I'll show you what I mean. If I go here and I create a new page from this template, so I'll just click on it and I'll name this June 2022. If I go here now and enter a new record, as you can see, it automatically gets related to this report. And then same for expenses. It gets automatically related. There we go. So you can see the relations to the records there. And so yeah, this saves me a lot of time, because whenever the workflow I'm following here is every new month I'm first first create the report and then start entering my income and expense records. I do not first enter them on these databases here, on these database views here, because then I would need to manually relate them to a report. Instead, I first create the monthly report, and then I go in every time I want to enter an income or expense record, and I create them from here, so they automatically get related to the report. So by having these monthly reports in place, the next thing I can do is create my top level reports, or in other words, my yearly reports. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the whole goal of this budget tracker, actually it could be useful for many different things, and I'm planning on extending this even further in the future. But at the moment, my goal with this budget tracker is to help me save a percentage of my income every year, so I can put that towards an investment. So here, as you can see, I'm setting an investment target, and then I have a formula that evaluates whether that investment target has been reached or not. So the way I am getting to this, let me just go through each field. So I have a title field called name, and this is where I enter the name of the report, which is the year. And then I have a relation field to the monthly reports database. So here is where I select all the monthly reports that apply to this yearly report, basically all the reports of every month of that year. Using these records, I can then calculate the total income, and I'm doing this using this roll-up field. Now here I actually hit a roadblock. So my goal was to sum up the numbers from this field here, so the total income field on the monthly reports database. But as you can see here, if I click on property, I'm not able to select this field, right? It doesn't appear as an option there. So what I had to do, I did this little hack here. Let me show you. So I created these two formula fields, one called total income number and one called total expenses number. And all these formula fields do is they just retrieve the value from the roll-up field, right? So here I have total income, and here I have total expenses. And by having these formula fields, I'm then able to pass this data. I'm able to retrieve these numbers in this roll-up field here. So as you can see, so my relation is these monthly reports, and the property for this total income field is the total income number, which is this here, right? And I'm summing up the values. Essentially, I'm summing up these two numbers here, and I'm doing the exact same thing for total expenses. So here the property is total expenses number, so this here, and I should be summing this. There we go. So I'm summing these two numbers, and yeah, that's how I'm able to calculate the total income and total expenses. Then the total savings field, once again, is a roll-up, but here I didn't have to do any of this hacky formula field thing, because savings is already a formula field. So I'm able to retrieve that from the relation records here, and I'm just summing up the savings. So then, by having these three numbers, I'm able to get my investment target. I'm able to evaluate whether my investment target has been reached or not. My investment target, by the way, is just a number, and the number format is %. So in decimal, this is 0.2. Here on the formula field, if I view the formula, what I'm doing here is I'm basically checking if the value of total savings, so this here, and I'm actually converting it to a number, is larger than total income, so total income multiplied by the investment target. So 20% in this case, which is 0.2, it's going to be this times 0.2. So if that is less than the total savings, then I have essentially reached my investment target. Therefore, the formula evaluates to true. Otherwise, it evaluates to false. If it's true, then that gets shown using a checked box here. If not, then this will be an empty box. So if I go ahead and let's say change my investment target to 90%, as you can see, the box is no longer checked. And there you have it, a step-by-step walkthrough of how I built my budget tracker in Notion. If you want to get access to this Notion template as well as the blueprint of the make automation scenario, click the link below. And with that said, if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more videos coming soon. See you in the next one.